get back into our series. This is the last again, it was one of those things I didn't intend to be a series. It just kind of turned into that. We've been focusing on Mark chapter 1 and the initial call that Jesus gave his disciples, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. We've read the scripture now many, many times. We've gone through the story over the last couple weeks, and for time's sake today, I'm not going to repeat that over and over again. I would encourage you to go back the last few weeks if you haven't watched, but also if you're not familiar with the story, it's in the Gospel of Mark. It's the very first chapter, and you will see sort of right there off the start, Mark gets into Jesus and how he called his first disciples. But what we've really been focusing on is the initial phrase that Jesus says to his disciples. Remember, he says, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." And then the Bible says, the next verse says immediately they left their nets and they followed him. And we've been discussing now this in great detail, but just to kind of remind you how we got to where we got today, is we've looked at 4 basic elements of Discipleship Simplified that we can find in these 2 verses and in Jesus' initial invitation to this call to discipleship. And the 4 elements we have discussed up to this point is follow me, which is our first. But remember, those of you that have been watching now for the last couple weeks, you'll know that what are we missing in follow me? Pause for effect for a second. Some of you are probably yelling out at your screen. Remember, we can never forget that comma. That comma in that verse is so pivotal to our understanding of Jesus' invitation and what comes next. Without the comma, you kind of skip past the follow me and get to the good stuff. But you can't get to the good stuff until it's got to be about him. So we've discussed that now. Second thing we discussed was after we follow me, we are getting into being formed, or the formation state. We're being molded and we're being shaped into the image of Christ, right? Because he said, "I will make you become fishers of men." Notice we said this 2 weeks ago, but that the verb there in the Greek, which the New Testament was written in Greek, the verb there is what's called a passive verb, but it's called a divine passive verb by most theologians, meaning that the action of making you become requires a force outside of yourself to accomplish. That's really what it basically, when you break it down, it means is basically in order to be formed or become fishers of men, you can't do that on your own, but you got to go back to the follow me. So the follow me is the first step. And as you if you give yourself to the first one, the second one almost comes organically. It's not forced. You're not getting up every day going, okay, what do I need to do today? What do I have to do? What's on the checklist today? If I keep pursuing, everything in this list always comes back to the first. I got to follow him, not one time, but every day. If I do that, then the other elements flow organically. I don't have to get up every day. Okay, what do I have to do today? What's on the box? That's what religion teaches you. Religion wants to give you a step-by-step progression and a formula. Because when you do the formula step-by-step, you can kind of do it your own. You don't really need to go back to the source. But Jesus' call is not a formula. It's really a process that begins with first following him. Once that happens, we get into form. The third one we talked about last week was he begins to change our focus. You could really go further. We didn't do this last week, but you can go further into focus. He changes your priorities. He changes your emotions, your feelings, your desires. All that gets changed. If you look at these young men when they followed Jesus and what they were when they grew to be 10 years later, if you could track their life over a 10-year period, from the time they started following Jesus on this occasion, 10 years later, you would find that their priorities, their desires, their dreams all had changed. Because that's what happens when you begin to follow him. You decrease, he increases, right? Your focus begins to change. And we talked about that last week. But we're finishing up on the last part that happens, and that we see actually not what Jesus requires, but more of the response that comes from the disciples after, put the little R so you know that's an R, the response that comes after the invitation is given. We see follow me, formed. There's a formation that being is happening. When you're following him, you're not just casually strolling behind him. We talked about this in the beginning. Following Christ is not like following somebody on Instagram or Facebook. You're not just observing them and going, ooh, thumbs up, ooh, thumbs down, ooh, comment. Let me comment on that picture. That's not what it means to follow Christ. To follow Christ means to literally walk in his footsteps, or walk as he walks, talk as he talks, or to do as he does or do. So that's why this is so important to understand this, because as that happens, that's why the formation begins to happen. That's why it's that divine passive verb, that this is all a part of the package. He begins to change your focus. But the response of the disciples, as we find, is that the Bible says, follow me and I will make you become fishers of men. And then right after that says, immediately they dropped their nets and began to follow him. That was their response. It was this forsaking element that we're going to talk about today. Now, several weeks ago, actually maybe longer than that, after a while, honestly, to be frank with you, it all runs together. So it was a little while back. I talked here on a Sunday morning about what are your nets. That was sort of the basic of it, right? And we kind of focused on the part of the story that says they lay down their nets. In fact, John and James actually left their father on the boat. I mean, they literally, the Bible says that their father Zebedee was there with some of his hired help, and the boys literally just immediately turned and said, "We're out, gotta go, Dad," and they left their dad on the boat. Peter and Andrew left their nets, so all of them left something. And we talked about this a couple months ago. And when I talked to you about, and again, this is following the flow of the Holy Ghost. And sometimes when you look at Scripture, this is why it's so awesome when you are reading the book with the author next to you. Because when the author can tell you, okay, here's what I meant. But in this situation it's awesome when you're reading the Bible with Jesus. If you're reading the Bible without Jesus, you're kind of like, it doesn't make sense. But when you're reading the Bible with him, because he is the book, right? He shapes the words in that passage to come to you where you're at and when you need it the most. That's why you could read a scripture 500 times, and on that 501st, you see something differently. Why? Because reading the Bible is something that happens spiritually, not intellectually. If you're struggling today reading the Word of God and you say, I just don't get it, because you're trying to understand it intellectually. You're not trying to understand it from a spiritual place. Next time you go to read the Word of God, just ask God, Lord, lead me, guide me, show me your Word. Because sometimes the truth of the Word of God is actually rather simple. The truth of the Word of God comes to you. You don't have to go try to put all these pieces together. Now, I enjoy studying and I enjoy sort of digging into the nuances of the Word of God, but sometimes the danger of that is you can overshoot the target. You can get so deep in some of the nuances of the Word of God that you forget the simplicity of His Word. So several months ago when I shared this verse with you, we focused on the idea, what are you willing to let go of? Right? And when we talked about this the last time, we shaped it from the standpoint of what do you need to let go of? So what are your nets, right? And there's a part of this that's important because all of us have a net. We all have an identity, right? They were fishermen. They had to leave their identity there because Christ was going to give them a new identity. Remember, the scripture says when you come to Christ and you're baptized in his name, old things passed away, behold, all things are made new. Meaning, if you're a doctor, when you come to Jesus Christ, you might be a doctor as a profession, but your identity changes to a disciple of Jesus Christ that is a doctor on the side. Now, I lost some of you on that, I can tell, because we don't really believe that. Most of you identify yourself by what you do But Christ identifies you by who you are or whose you are. We belong to him. So these men had to let go of their identity. Now, did they ever fish again? Yeah, they did. Actually, the Bible talks about they actually did fish at a later date several times. Fishing was a part of their blood. You could never get away from the fact that they had been fishermen. But what really was happening is there was a transition of identity from what they used to be to what God was calling them to be. So in order to do that, there were some things they had to let go of. There's some things of their old past. There was some things, again, there was nothing wrong with being a fisherman. They're not talking about sin here, but this is an identity thing. They had to let go of the nets. They had to walk away from the boat. So we talked about this several weeks ago, and I'm saying that because the Lord's given me a different spin on this today, and I don't want you to miss what God's saying, because you've seen this verse from the standpoint of, okay, immediately they left their nets. And we often look at it kind of as if Jesus is on this, I got to draw it out because I'm kind of stuck here. If I was in person, I could show it to you better, but I'll have to draw it. So here we are in the middle, right? There we are. Little Andrew, little Peter, little James, little John, right? And over here, and I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to represent Jesus with the cross, right? Because you can't really separate Jesus from the cross or discipleship from the cross. It all goes hand in hand. So Jesus is going to be represented by a cross. I wouldn't dare try to draw Jesus as a stick figure. So we're just going to be safe today and draw him as a cross. So here we are in the middle, right? And on this other side, this is sort of this identity. And the easiest way to do it is we'll just draw it as a fishing boat. And here we are sort of in this middle, right? And there's this call on this side over here to come. But we have identities here that we've got to leave behind. But when we look at this verse, I have a feeling that we look at it by identifying what we're leaving behind. So we're walking. If you can look at this, if I could animate this stick figure today, and he's looking this way, so I'm the stick figure now. I'm looking at this boat, and Jesus is behind me. I'm looking at what I'm giving. So I'm actually following him, but I'm following him walking backwards. If you can follow what I'm saying here, sort of on my limited ability to be animated here. So I'm kind of walking backwards here as I follow him. I'm leaving my nets behind. I'm leaving my identity. I'm leaving these things behind, or I'm giving these things up. But when you look at it that way, which is, there's part of it that there's a little bit of truth to that, because there are some things you've got to identify and let go. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. There's some things that we hold on to that are very dear that keep us. I'm not talking necessarily about sin, but there's some identities, there's some dreams, there's some hopes, there's some desires that in order to pursue Jesus Christ, you've got to let go of. You may never be that. You may never reach the height of your profession. You may never be that. You may not be able to retire with all the money you want. You may not be able to get that house. There's some things you got to identify to let go to pursue him. But when we look at this verse, a lot of times we look at it from this perspective. What am I having to give up? What am I having to let go of? And yes, there's a part of that we need to let go of some things. And some of you today, there's some things in your life that as you're reaching out to pursue Jesus Christ, you can't quite grasp it because you're too busy holding on to some things of your past or your present, maybe even. Not everything's in the past. Sometimes you're holding on to the present, the what ifs, the almost theirs. If I could just I'll follow you, God, as soon as I get this. Or, God, as soon as I take care of this. Or as soon as I achieve this. You're next on the list. What are those things in your life? And there's a part of this verse that's exactly really what we have to look at. Because this is important, right? Because we find that all of the people that Jesus called had a previous identity. Later on, we get into this guy named Matthew, right? Who's a tax collector. Now, he had a little different desire because he was leaving something that really had such a negative tone to it. So his pursuit of leaving his tax profession behind may have been a little easier for him because he was you could see what he was letting go of. But there's something more immediately in this verse that really speaks in a greater way. Because for years when I looked at this verse and they left their nets behind, I looked at it as what do I need to give up? What am I holding on to? And yes, again, my point I'm making to you is yes, there's a part of that. And God will always ask you for an Isaac in your life. God's always going to ask you to let go of some things. Are you willing? Is there anything in your life that's bigger than God? That's a part of this, right? You can't take your nets with you where he's going. You can't take the boat. There's no fallback plan, right? So we're going to follow you, God, but can we take these nets? Because if you decide to go wacky, we at least have a fallback plan. Or, hey, by the way, we'll follow you, but Dad, hold our spot on the boat. We might be back. If this guy is a quack, we'll be right back next week. So there's a part of that requires a full selling out, letting go. And there's some of us that we've never really been able to fully see all that Jesus has for us because there's some things we're not willing to let go of. There's some things we're holding on to. We're trying to balance two different worlds. God, I'll pursue you, but I need this. I need to hold on to this. Maybe it's a career. Maybe it's a pursuit of something that you consider to be a lifelong achievement. That maybe there needs to be an Isaac where you need to take that and put it on the altar and say, God, if you want me to kill it, I'll kill it today. I don't know what that is. And if you ask God, I believe he'll identify that. And there's an element to that. We've got to do. Nothing in our life that we desire can be bigger than God. And if, like, for example, if you're single, your desire for a mate can't be bigger than your desire for Jesus Christ. If you're married but don't have kids and you have a desire to have kids, your desire for kids can't be bigger than your desire for God. If you're trying to have a career and you're working your way up the ladder, your desire for that position cannot be bigger than your desire for God. And God's always going to be testing. He's always going to be testing in your life what's bigger. Trust me, that never stops. God's always testing that. And the moment you pass the test, you're like, all right, I proved it. Watch out, because it's coming back around and you're going to have to are we having to prove ourselves? Are you telling me I got to prove myself to God? No, but I'll tell you what, flesh is a dangerous thing. Our will is a dangerous thing. This humanity that we are dealing with every day is a dangerous thing. And the moment you stop dying out to yourself daily, as Paul said, immediately in your life, something is going to try to rise back up to take the throne of your life. There is one throne in your life. One throne. One throne in your life. This is a terrible throne, but hopefully it will do the job. There is one throne in your life. One. And only one. And God's not going to fight you for possession of that throne. He wants you to give it to him. I've used this before and I'll say it again, and we're going to get to the other side of this today. But it's the proverbial game of musical chairs, right? If you've ever played musical chairs growing up, you know what it's like. You get to the end and it's just you and that other person, but one chair. And you're circling around that chair waiting for the music to stop. And it almost happens just inadvertently that when the music stops, both of you are usually in a position, not every time, but most of the time you're in a position where each one of you has an opportunity to get a chance to sit down. And what usually happens is both people get one cheek on the seat. And there's this fight for possession of that last chair because I've got my half of my backside and you got your half of your backside, and we're both trying to lay claim to the same spot. And it basically comes down to who can push one another off. And usually in this situation, the stronger one wins, right? But let's be frank, God doesn't play that game with you. He's not sitting on half sitting on your throne today and you're sitting on the other half and you're seeing who's going to, no. If you've got a quarter of your backside on the chair, God says you can have it. Because he wants the whole thing. You see, we love sitting on our throne, ruling our kingdom until the kingdom calls apart. And we're like, oh, time out. I got to get off my throne. God, come sit quick. Fix all this. And God comes in and fixes everything. You're like, oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Got it. Now up, get out. My turn. That whole idea that, and forgive me if you have this, but this whole idea that people have put on bumper stickers for years, well, God is my co-pilot. I hope to God God's not your co-pilot, because you know what? He's not interested in co-piloting your plane. Get out of the co-pilot seat, get yourself back in your chair, put your seatbelt on, put your tray table in its full upright and locked position, sit down, stop talking, and let him fly the plane. All you get to do is pull up your shade, look out the window, and go, wow, that's beautiful. Or, wow, it's cloudy. I don't even know where we're at. But he's the one. But if you want to tell him how to fly, he's going to say, you know what? You go ahead and take the controls. There's one throne. So there's this part of that this call to follow him requires a full selling out of identity. But this is the word in this verse that really gets to me. Because when you look at this verse, and we've read it now several times, and we've looked at it from several different angles, but really the part of this verse that really is the key to understanding the other side of this follow me. And we're going to read it now again, just because I want you to hear it. And we've quoted it now, but we're going to just read it one more time. So just allow me for a second to pull it up on my in my Bible here, because I want to read it to you. I'm going to read it to you out of the ESV. And you can follow along whatever translation you have, but I'm going to read out of the ESV. And we're going to scroll down, and we're going to get to verse number 16. Passing along the seaside, he saw Simon. Again, we know Simon and Peter are the same guy, but by that point, he was going by Simon, not by Peter. Passing along the seaside, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, and they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. They left their nets and followed him. But I left out the key word in that. The key word in that is this word. I don't know if I started too big. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it all on the immediate. If I can get it all the one there. I think I can. My Y is getting smaller. This is the word. Immediately. What does immediately mean? Immediately means without hesitation. Immediately means there's almost no thought given to the ramifications of the decision. It was such a direct response. It was almost oh God, I can't think of the term right now. A reflex. I get it out in a minute. This reflex was so powerful that the writer, Mark, is telling us that it was so powerful in its immediate response that they left their nets where they were. Now, again, earlier I was talking about the fact that when we read this verse, we look at the fact of what they were leaving behind. But this word immediately kind of gives us the idea that to them, this response, this reflex, was not necessarily focusing on what they were leaving behind. I think Mark puts in, they left their nets, or implying that not only did they leave their nets, but they left their dad on the boat, as sort of the way to really build the power of this response that they have. That they didn't even take a moment, or implies they didn't even take a moment to take care of anything. They left their nets immediately and followed Jesus Christ. And so this word here really gives us a whole different understanding of what really is taking place here. Because without this word, if I just said, Jesus says, follow me and I will make you become fishers of men, they left their nets and followed him. We don't know the length of time between his initial call and their response. Did it take them a minute? Did they ask questions? Was there some talking back and forth between? Was there some negotiation with maybe another fisherman to sell their boat or to take care of their possessions? Or can you guys make sure this gets put away? Or Dad, we're going to leave, but if you need us, call us. But the word immediately and the connotation of this sort of call response back almost within just milliseconds of each other gives us a whole different understanding to the entirety of their response. And why is this important? What are we really looking at here? And what is God really trying to show us here? And what is Mark, the writer, really trying to show us here? Well, earlier, we talked about the fact that when we're in that crossroads, and I'll draw it again here we are again, right? And again, over here, represented by a cross, we've got Jesus, right? And we've got this call to discipleship, this call to a cross. And over here, we've got our former life represented by the boat, right? Here we are. And in most of the time, we're going to be in this position consistently in our walk with God. If you're new and you're just very starting off, this is sort of the balance that you're going to have to deal with on a daily basis. God's always going to be asking you, and I said it earlier, what do you want more? This is never going to go away. But this verse here gives us a key to understanding how we can live in this lifestyle every day. And here's what the point is. When we look at the frame, most of the time when we look at this verse, our focus really, and I said it earlier, our focus really points back in this direction. What were they giving up? Being a fisherman, their nets, their boat, family, whatever. Okay. And yes, is there, and I said it again, I'm repeating myself just for a moment, but is there truth to that? Absolutely. But we go back to our word here, and that is immediately. Our word immediately is shaping this decision in a different way, because most of the time when we look at this decision, if we could put a little box, you get the little box, our life is constantly filled with, what do I do? What do I do? Right? That's what we look at. When we look at this picture, we got to add that little question mark in there, because in our mind, it's always battling this. But what did they do, or what was it about that caused them to make such an abrupt and immediate and not reflective, but a decision of reflex? I'll get it out there in a minute. That's not the right way of saying it, but that sounds good right now. What was it about this moment that caused them to make such a quick decision? Again, Mark is the one telling us they left their nets. But I don't believe they were leaving anything behind in their mind, because this word immediately tells us they didn't stop and think. How does someone go from being positioned, trained into one place? You're going to be a fisherman. Your dad's a fisherman. You're going to be a fisherman. This is what you're going to be. To one moment and suddenly changing, and a complete change of your entire life. How does that happen? Think about it. Most of the time when you make a decision, the bigger the decision, the more deliberate you become, right? If you ask today, what are you going to eat for lunch this afternoon when we're done? You can probably give me a pretty quick decision. Burger, pizza, chicken, soup, whatever your fancy is. What are you going to have? Sandwich? Breakfast? You're not going to sit there, and usually, unless, maybe you may take a moment, but you're not usually going to sit there and ponder all day. Now, what should I have? Let's see. Well, pizza, a burger. Okay, what if I go get chicken? Oh, there may be a little bit of that based off, I had pizza last night, I want pizza again today. Or, okay, I get it. But you're not spending all day trying to figure out what you're going to eat, because usually that's a small decision. But if I ask you today, where are you going to work? You're looking for a job. Where are you going to work? Or where are you going to move to? What car are you going to buy? Or how about this? Who are you going to marry? Now, if you're married today, you've already made the decision. But if you're single today, that's not a decision. You just go, oh, this or that, or go there, or buy that. The bigger the decision, the higher the consequences, the slower and more deliberate the decision actually becomes. You know what? Today, if you have pizza and it's not good, you get another shot of it at dinner later tonight. If you get up in the morning, you have a donut for breakfast and you don't like it, guess what? You get another shot at it. There's some things in life that are so big, you don't get a second chance. You make the wrong decision on where you on buying a house, it could have huge repercussions. If you make the wrong decision on a job, that could set you back. If you make the wrong decision on who you're going to marry, that's massive. So we become more deliberate. This was not a decision of, oh, where you guys, well, you know, hey guys, come hang out with me today. Hey, you want to go down and get some coffee down in town? This was a call of complete and utter abandonment and turning back on where you've been, who you are, and a full embrace of a new identity and a new direction in your life. This should have been something that in most cases would have taken time. It's a career change. It's a life change. It's a change for your family. It's a change for your future. It has generational implications to it. But yet the response is immediately. Why? When you look at the whole scene, the only way that this becomes irrelevant is because of the power of this. You see, when Jesus walked up to those 4 individuals and makes this appeal to them to follow me, they didn't know him. They didn't really know anything about him. They didn't even know what they were signing up for, but there was something supernatural about the call that went beyond their intellect and went into their heart. That it produced a response that maybe they shocked them. You ever make a decision and down the road you went, wow, I can't believe I made that. That was a big gamble. I took a big risk there. What was it about? You see, you can never lose when it comes to choosing him. You see, this goes back to what started this entire series. What started this entire series as we get towards the end here today. And we close this out. It started with and ends with this. Follow me. Follow who? Who's the me in this? Follow me. This wasn't a rabbi standing before them. This wasn't a teacher standing before them. This was Jesus Christ standing before them. And so for them, the moment pulled them so strongly. The moment was so impactful for them that their response was so immediate, was so without thought. Because to them, they were not looking at what they were giving up. They were looking at what they were getting. You see, when you really want to follow Jesus, you really get to pursue him. It's not about what you're giving up. That's the problem we're having. And this is the whole punchline of today. And this is really where I want to land for today and sum up the entire series. We spend so much of our time wanting to know what we can't do, wanting to know what we have to give up, that we miss the entirety of the message and we miss the prize because we're worried about, well, if I follow Jesus, I can't do this. If I follow Jesus, I won't get to go there. If I follow Jesus, I won't get to watch this. If I follow Jesus, I won't get to listen to this. If I follow Jesus, I probably won't get to wear that. If I follow Jesus, he'll make me this. If I follow Jesus, I'll have to get another career. If I follow him, I won't be able to live there. If I follow him, I won't be able to drive this. If I follow him, he'll maybe marry them. Or if I follow, that's what we're looking at. But the point of the whole matter is, if I follow him, nothing else matters. They so bought into this invitation, they didn't care what they were giving up. They didn't care about the risk because they wanted him. You see, when you're so busy looking at what you're giving up, you forget what you're pursuing. This is a pursuit of him. What does it matter what it costs you if he's the prize? What does it matter what you've got to give up? Forgive me for being passionate, but I'm trying to tell somebody today, you're looking at what you've got to give up, but that you've forgotten what you get. Because if you get him, what does it matter what it costs you? If it gets him, does it matter that your friends and family walk away? What does it matter if you get him that you don't get the job or the career or the house or the vacation? If you get him, it doesn't matter. If you get him, to them, it didn't matter that their nets were no longer going to be there. It didn't matter to them that their dad was going to be left on the boat. Now, God does not expect you to be rude and just leave people and abandon them and kick them to the curb. But he does expect you to fully buy out to him and say, God, more than anybody, I want you. More than money, more than fame, more than family, more than anything else in this world, I want you. That's what he wants. He doesn't want a portion of you. He doesn't want 3/4 of you. He wants all of you. He doesn't want you on Sundays. He doesn't want to be your weekend daddy. He wants to be with you every day of the week, 24 hours a day. When you go to bed at night, you want to say, God, you're still king. When you wake up in the morning, you say, God, you're still the king. I still want you more than anything. That's really what he's trying. This is what this verse really tells us. This is why their response was immediate. They weren't giving to them. If you'd have said, but Peter, Andrew, you guys are giving up your nets. What nets? James and John, you guys are leaving the boat. What boat? We get him. Do you realize what we get to do? We get to follow him. We get to go where he goes. We get to fellowship with him. We get to be in his presence. Doesn't matter what we give up. We get him. You see, if you're just following religion, it's like, religion is all about the ultimate scale, right? This is the problem with religion. Religion is like this giant scale. I've used this before, but you got the pivot point, right? And you got the two parts of the scale here. And you've got the little scale here, and you've got the little part down here. And this is what religion does, right? Religion is trying to bring this perfect balance of, well, you give God this much, and he gives you this much, and so it's this balance. No. God is not about this scale, folks. He doesn't want you to balance it out. He wants all of it. I said this a couple weeks ago. When he says being formed or being followed by him, what is that really meaning? What is he really calling us to do? In reality, it's, if you're a plumber, I'm going to use a plumber. It's not how I can be a disciple and be a plumber on the side, but it's as I become a disciple. If Jesus was a plumber, what kind of plumber would he be? If Jesus was a doctor, what kind of doctor would he be? When I accept that call, I am living, and I have it here in my notes. I found it. I'm to live as though Jesus is living in me. If Jesus were a plumber, what kind of plumber would he be? If he were an attorney, what kind of attorney would he be? If he was an accountant, what teacher, business owner, what kind of person would he be? This is what the call to follow him. So today, what you're giving up is irrelevant if you get him. If you're here today and you're trying to watch and you're trying to get that key and get that nugget, okay, how can I get more of God, but not have to change my life much? Because God, my weekends are important to me. Oh God, those vacations mean the world to me. God, this job is a lot to me because I get that extra, I make that extra few dollars. God, I love you, but my wife, my husband, my child, they mean a lot to me, God. So how can I find that balance? God, I'm giving you Sunday, but God, I need some other days that are mine. God, I really can't give you all this because I need my me time. We're always worried about what we're giving up, that we've lost the power of what we're getting. I know it seems simple today, and maybe today you're going, no, because if you've never experienced it, you don't know really what you're missing. But when you've got a taste, when you've been in his presence, when you've felt his spirit impact you, when you've felt his love wash over you, what matters in life? Nothing but him. Everything else becomes absolutely irrelevant. When you get him, you know what? If I never make another dollar, if I never go on another vacation, if I never reach that, because it's funny. If you go on that vacation, I don't use that because we're getting towards the summer, so we're starting to get into that season, right? That dream vacation, guess what? When it's all done, you're going to come back home. You'll have some great memories. You'll have some Facebook posts. You'll have some cool pictures. But eventually those memories are going to fade away and life's still going to be there. If you get that room painted, you get that house done, you get that new car, that's great. But eventually it just becomes a car. It just becomes a house. But if you get him, man, he never grows old. He never grows stale. So today, stop looking at what you're giving up and look at what you're getting. Stop walking. Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind me and pressing towards the mark. I've talked about that verse. You've talked about that verse. Part of that verse is letting go of the past and all that. But I think part of that verse speaks to this. Forget everything you think you're losing and press towards him. Because as long as you look at what you're losing, you'll never fully embrace what you're getting. As long as you focus on what you have to give up, you're never going to fully see the fruit of what you're getting when you get him. These guys had a response of immediately. Why? Because to them, nets, a boat, we want him. That's why their response was so quick. That's why they didn't have to ponder it. That's why they didn't have to go through the pros and cons, the good and the bad, the what ifs. To them, it didn't matter. If I get him, he was crazy. Jesus didn't even offer him anything. He said, come with me and I'll make you famous. Come with me and I'll make you wealthy. Come with me and I'll bless you. We tell people all the time, come to God and he'll bless you. Come to God, he'll use you. Come to God, he'll make your life wonderful. He didn't even give that invitation to the people that were going to follow him. He just said, follow me. The only thing he said is, I'm going to make you become fishers of men. That's it. That's all you get. What does that mean? I don't know. We're going to find out. So you know what? I can't sell you today. If you follow him, he's going to bless you. If you follow him, you're going to have a wonderful, perfect life. Oh, if you follow him, you're going to get him. And if you get him, it doesn't matter. All the rest of the stuff is pointless. Doesn't matter. You can live in the nicest house, but when you walk in that house, you're going to go, God, if you want this house, I give it to you. You're going to drive a nice car, but you say, God, if you want this car, I give it to you. Because to you, he is all that matters. Follow me. It really is that simple. It comes back to him. That's why the Bible says he's the author and the finisher of our faith. I challenge you today. Stop looking at what you're giving up. Start facing what you're getting, but more importantly, who you're getting. And that's him. If you would focus on him every day, I get to walk with the same God who spoke to Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David. This same Christ that gives this invitation is the Christ that fellowships with me every day. What am I giving up? I'm not giving up anything. I'm getting everything. This has been Discipleship Simplified. Follow me. Let me form you. Let me change your focus. And when that happens, you forsake without even thinking. It just becomes a reaction because of what you're getting in return. Because you're getting him, and he's all that matters. Get Jesus. You know the old saying used to be, got milk? I finish with this. I'll leave this on the screen. It's no longer got milk. It's just simply got Jesus. Do you have him today? How do I know if I have him? Well, are you focused more on what you're giving up? Are you focusing more on what you don't get to do or what you can't do than you do on getting to be with him or just know him or being able to walk with him? If you're focusing more on what you're giving up, if you're focusing more on what you have to leave behind, if you're focusing more on what you can't do and can't go and can't see and can't watch, then you don't have him. But if you have him, people that have Jesus don't ask questions like that. People who have Jesus don't go, okay, God, now, Do I have to stop doing this? Do I have to stop doing that? People that get Jesus, it is organic. It happens with just reflex. You start to change things in your life because you know you get more of him every day. Do you have Jesus? There's only one way to find out. What are you focusing on today? What you're giving up or what you're getting? I challenge you with this today. As always, thank you for watching. God bless you. Hope to see you next Sunday in person, but if not, we'll see you again here next Sunday right here on our Easter broadcast. God bless you as always, and until next time.